In a tweet on the 4th of January, Israel Adesanya expressed his wish to fight in Australia at least one more time before he hangs up the gloves, says goodbye to mixed martial arts. The reigning UFC middleweight champion last fought in Australia in UFC 243's main event against Robert Whittaker. In this video, we'll be discussing Adesanya's desire to fight in Australia. Stay tuned as you don't want to miss this. Adesanya in Australia passed. The Nigerian-born fighter based in New Zealand made his debut in UFC 221 in Perth in 2018 in a technical knockout TKO win against Rob Wilkinson. In his most recent appearance in Australia, Adesanya, popularly known as the Last Stylebender, fought in the main event of UFC 243 for his UFC middleweight title unification bout against Robert Whittaker in 2019. He won the bout and unified his middleweight championship title by knocking out Whittaker 3 minutes into the second round. He had won the interim UFC middleweight championship title, defeating Kelvin Gastelum in UFC 236. Gastelum was supposed to fight Whittaker, the middleweight champion, but Whittaker had to withdraw due to a hernia. Adesanya in Australia present. The 32-year-old Adesanya has defended his middleweight championship 3 times already since 2019 and will get a chance to defend it for the 4th time in February 2022 in UFC 271. He'll be facing Whittaker in a rematch against the very person he has dethroned as the UFC middleweight champion. According to Adesanya, he believes that he had gotten inside Whittaker's head and had been able to beat him. But because his opponent has realized his mistake, it will be a much more difficult fight, and hence he's even more determined to beat Whittaker. The Adesanya versus Whittaker rematch has been in the works for a while now and had been held up due to his demands about the location of the fight. He had previously wanted the rematch to be held in Australia or New Zealand, but with the worsening COVID-19 situation across the globe, COVID restrictions in the 2 countries make it impossible. Hence, the fight will instead be held in Houston. Professional boxer, kickboxer, and MMA fighter for the last 11 years, Adesanya might have hinted on his plans preceding his retirement, but has not given any indication of walking away from the sport. Other UFC news: Nate Diaz versus Dustin Poirier delayed. The highly anticipated matchup between 2 of the most exciting MMA fighters of the lightweight category that has been on the horizon since 2018 has yet again been unable to become a reality. The 2 were scheduled to meet in UFC 230, but Poirier pulled out to address a lingering injury after Diaz was unable to agree with the conditions set by UFC. As the current situation stands, Poirier, coming off back-to-back wins over Conor McGregor, lost to Charles Oliveira, who defended his UFC lightweight championship title with a submission win. Meanwhile, Diaz, who has just 1 fight left on his UFC contract with no talks of any extension having been reported, he fights in the welterweight category. His last fight was a loss at the hands of Leon Edwards at UFC 263. Reports had emerged after UFC 269, in which Oliveira defeated Poirier, that Diaz would be Poirier's next opponent in early 2022. Yet more recently, sources have said that the talks between UFC and the 2 fighters had not come to fruition. Poirier said on a podcast that he had talked to UFC about fighting Diaz on a short notice, but because no contract has been signed as of yet, he would wait to say more. According to him, he had already said yes and that they were waiting on Diaz. Diaz took to Twitter to respond by taking a shot at Poirier, saying, "I just talked to the UFC. I said, what's up with the DP fight? I want to fight ASAP. But they said Dustin sucks and they don't want it. Sorry, Dustin, you suck. Hope to fight ASAP though. Let's do this." He also took a dig at Oliveira, saying that he too sucks. Jake Paul challenged. Martin Vettori, the top-ranked UFC middleweight title contender, has challenged the younger Paul brother to step into the sparring ring. Vettori, who has previously taken shots at Paul, issued his latest comments on Twitter in response to Paul going around picking fights with UFC and anyone associated with it, including Dana White. Vettori in his tweet stated that even Paul has time and time again served an open challenge to anybody, anytime, anywhere. He won't be able to last more than 6 rounds against him. The Italian dream may be fighting fire with fire, but most people don't see a fight between the 2 materializing. The reason is that despite himself being 185 pounds, Paul has not challenged any UFC fighter above the welterweight weight bracket. And even then, it's mostly fighters with star power and are past their prime. Vettori, on the other hand, is young and in his prime fighting years and does not bring the same star power that Jorge Masvidal or Nate Diaz, 2 of the people Paul is Paul's challenge bring. Paul versus White, the feud continues. Jake Paul and Dana White have not stopped going at each other's throats and don't show signs of stopping anytime soon. Paul's been wanting to fight Masvidal or Diaz without entering into a contract with UFC, while the two are not ready to leave the UFC, and Dana White is not going to sign off on a UFC contracted fighter going up against someone outside UFC. Hence, Paul decided to go after White, implying repeatedly he has a cocaine problem, and more recently presenting him with a set of demands to reform the UFC and saying that he'll sign a UFC contract if White agrees. The demands stipulate increasing the minimum pay per fight of the fighters to $50,000 from $12,000. He also called for UFC fighters to be given a 50% share in the UFC yearly revenue generated, which was $1 billion in 2021. He also called for long-term health care for all the fighters because a lot of former UFC fighters have said that they've suffered brain damage. According to Paul, White has 5 days to accept these demands and implement the changes by the 31st of March 2022. Should that happen, Paul, who is 5-0 in his boxing career, will retire from boxing and sign a one-fight contract with UFC to go up against Masvidal in the octagon. Paul didn't stop there. He also addressed the contracted UFC fighters, urging them to fight for their rights and take a stand, saying that they deserve better pay, better healthcare, and above all, more freedom. He went on to clarify that he's not their enemy, but their advocate, who selfishly wants to knock out a few of you to make some big bank. White issued a response saying that Paul is too stupid to write the list of demands himself, and that he knows that it was all written by Paul's manager. According to White, the manager once used to work for him as an accountant, and that he thinks he's a scumbag. He went on to say in a video uploaded on Twitter that if Paul and his manager really think that they can do a better job of running things and treat the fighters better, then they are more than welcome to start their own business. He went on to say that what they both should instead be focusing on is Paul's business, which according to him is tanking. UFC Vegas 46 loses fights. UFC Vegas 46 has seen 2 of its scheduled 15 fights being pulled. The first UFC card of 2022 has seen Abdul Razak Al-Hassan pull out of his fight against Joaquin Buckley. The reason is as yet not known, and because it is on such short notice, UFC has decided not to set Buckley against someone else. Hours after Razak pulled out, a fight between UFC debutant Clayton Rodriguez and Zaruk Adesanya was also pulled, with Rodriguez tested positive for the flu. On top of that, reports surfaced that Adesanya had suffered an injury as well, so there was no way the matchup could be salvaged. UFC Vegas 46, despite the pullout, still has a lot of star power, with a key featherweight fight between Giga Chikadze and Kelvin Qatar acting as the headline event. Chikadze will be looking to win his 10th straight bout, while Qatar will be hoping to come back to form after his lopsided loss to Max Holloway on Fight Island a year ago. The event also features Muslim Salikhov going up against Michael Pereira, and Caitlin Chukagian goes up against the returning Jennifer Maia. McGregor, a problematic matchup for Oliveira. According to Charles Sonnen, while Oliveira holds the UFC lightweight title, McGregor has the best chance of reclaiming it. He based his opinion off the fact that despite Oliveira having defeated Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler in his title defense, he pointed out that they both dropped him in the first round and he had to put it all on line to beat them. McGregor has already declared he is next up for a shot at dethroning Oliveira, who has not dismissed the Irishman. Even though Dana White has said that Justin Gaethje should be the next challenger, if Oliveira is given free rein to choose his next challenger, he might go for McGregor, who's considered one of the finest knockout artists in the sport. That's a wrap for this video. Will Israel Adesanya get his wish of fighting in Australia again, or will the COVID situation outlast his UFC career? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.